Hey folks, it's Echo here. After 10 plus years, the Fun Pimps are going to be taking 7 Days to Die out of early access, and I'm going to walk you through what that means in terms of both the PC and the console, pricing, when we're going to get it, and then a breakdown of the FAQ that they released. So what does it mean to come out of early access for both PC and console users? For PC users, this won't be a major shift. You're not going to have to buy a new version if you already have it. You'll still get experimental builds, but the stable ones are the ones that will release both to console as well as PC.
What does that mean for the game? It means everything we promised is still coming. We haven't forgotten about our remaining Kickstarter goals and the features we promised over the years.
Let's break this down because there was a whole lot of information actually behind the scenes in what Rick was saying there. The first thing is around the Kickstarter. If you're new to 7 Days to Die, there was a Kickstarter over 10 years ago where there was a bunch of things offered, some of which have been delivered and some of which haven't. The Fun Pimps have caught a ton of flack for this, and I think this is his way of trying to make sure to mitigate that up front and say, hey, we're still going to deliver on those promises. Next, we'll talk about the features promised over the years, and I'm not going to get into the full roadmap yet, we'll do that later. The two big ticket items that he is alluding to here are bandits and then the end game story. These two items will not be part of the 1.0 drop, but will be part of a future content update, which I'll cover in the roadmap. This leads me to one other item that Rick mentioned in regards to support moving forward.
We're still planning on supporting 7 Days to Die, as we always have.
So I'm not going to lie, I was hoping for a little bit more out of this one. With 2024 being a seminal year for survival crafting games, we've had games like Enshrouded, Nightingale, and Palworld come in and start to crowd the market a little bit. Now I can honestly say each of them have their pros and cons, but I will say that the game studios Keen, Inflection, and Pocket Pair have done an incredible job of engagement with the community to understand what works, what doesn't, and to make adjustments in accordance and with the community. To that end, most of them have very robust roadmaps that they're already delivering to incrementally and fast. After over 10 years of development, there's a lot of frustration, but also a lot of vibrance and passion in the 7 Days to Die community, and I really hope that the Fun Pimps learn to tap into this like some of the newcomers to the market. And maybe they have, because this is the first time that we're going to see a multi-phased roadmap from the Fun Pimps. Here's Rick talking about that, as well as some of the upcoming dates we can expect.
Future alpha updates will turn into major content patches. We will still have experimental builds with stable releases going to consoles and other PC markets once they're ready. We're currently planning for an experimental release in late May and a stable 1.0 launch in June. We'll have exact release dates as we get closer.
Okay, lots again to unpack there, so let's rewind back and talk through the roadmap. The first date that we heard from Rick was the experimental release on PC, which will come out in May. If the Fun Pimps follow past strategies, they'll have some developer streams that'll come out for a few weeks, and then they will have a streamer weekend where all the streamers and content creators will get access to help build up buzz, and then they will have the experimental release to the public. Usually that is out for about a month, allowing the public to get a hold of it and pressure test it before they release a full stable version. A month after that, we should see the console launch. And I, for one, am very excited to have our console brethren get to join us. Sort of. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's dive into the specifics of the release. So at a quick glance, the majority of the updates that we're going to see are going to be graphical. We've got new vehicle assets, new animals, new gore systems for zombies, zombie variants. I'm very excited about that one. New props, road decals, new POIs, updated graphics, some optimization, some random gen improvements, and controller support. And because I can't read, we're doing the titled options last. So character system, this is one of the things I've been most excited about. They are completely overhauling the character model as well as the associated animations. This is a long overdue update and a welcome change. In conjunction with this, we're also getting an overhaul to the armor and clothing system. On a purely visual level, they look much better than what we have today. The question is going to be around the mechanics of how they function. I skipped over one item because it is the only item that I'm not entirely sure what it is, and it's the only one that will mechanically change how we play the game. Or at least potentially, so that's the new challenge system. At this stage, we don't know anything about it, but hopefully it gives a little bit more to the progression system. But otherwise, your guess is as good as mine. Let me know down in the comments what you think that might be. So if I were to sum up the 1.0 drop, it would be largely graphical in nature. And then of course the consoles, just bringing them online. After that, we'll get the Storms Brewing release at the end of 2024. This one's got new weather systems and biome progression overhaul. I'm hoping the weather systems deal with some of the visibility issues and make the wasteland a little bit more livable. I'm also curious what they mean by biome progression overhaul, but we'll have to wait and see that one. Crossplay is going to be huge, but again, I've got questions here because it says crossplay / random gen for consoles. I'm hoping that this means crossplay between both PC and console as well as different console types, but we'll have to wait and find out. Now on to the plus items for that, additional zombie stages. No clue what that one is whatsoever, but I hope it's maybe some new zombie behaviors, some different attacks, something to just vary how we're dealing with combat. Spawn near friend, okay, Twitch drops, yeah, those are good. And then this next one is interesting, outfit DLCs and much more. Okay, so outfit DLCs tells us that there's going to be some additional monetization. This one could honestly be good or bad depending on how it's implemented. In Q2 of 2025, we've got a new threat. This one brings some of the major components that we've been looking for in terms of kind of a gold version. I think how the community has envisioned it. For this one, we'll get bandits, we'll get the menu / UI overhaul, event system, which I assume is going to be leveraging some of the components of the Twitch integration and playing with it, and a new quest type, which is going to be a great addition to the game. And then finally, end of year 2025, we've got the road ahead. So trader overhaul, no details there, story mode. That should wrap in some of the details around the Duke and Noah and all the things that are going to go on there. Steam Workshop support, we've been waiting for that one. And then new quest types, just more varied gameplay is always going to be a good thing and very welcome. So that is everything that we know on the roadmap. I'll do a full breakout of all the features in the 1.0 release, and I'll link that up above once it's done. Now let's talk about the cost.
With the launch of Stable 1.0, the current retail price of the game will increase to match the cost of the new console edition, which we'll cover later.
So he never did cover the price in this video, but they did put it in the FAQ. Once 1.0 releases, you'll be looking at about $45.
If you currently own 7 Days to Die on PC or purchase it before 1.0's launch, then nothing will change. You will still get all major free updates coming. The only real change is that anyone who has not purchased the game by the launch of 1.0 will have to purchase it at a new price. Speaking of sales, we're running a last chance week-long deal starting next Monday on Steam. We are sharing this because we wanted to give all players the opportunity to purchase 7 Days on Steam at the lowest discount before the price goes up.
So huge shout out to the Fun Pimps on this one. They didn't have to do this one. They could have just waited and taken advantage of the price jump, and instead they're trying to get people on board before that happens. Given the concerns about consoles and people feeling like they're going to have to pay for the game twice, I think this is a really great move on their part. That being said, they are trying to also mitigate that console pain, which we'll get to soon. And by soon, actually, let's just jump on into the console discussion.
The number one comment we hear on social media is, when is the new 7 Days to Die console version coming out? Folks, you won't have to wait much longer. The game looks great and runs surprisingly smooth.
Okay, surprisingly smooth, maybe not the best word choice, but 7 Days to Die, not known for optimization.
We are working on the exact dates, but know that it's coming soon after 1.0 launch on PC.
So this brings us back to kind of that July target time frame for the console release. Now that said, there were a ton of disclaimers both verbally as well as on screen that you saw where those dates are subject to change. Now on to the console pricing for those who have already purchased it previously.
So what does that mean for the legacy console version owners? Due to the differences between old and current hardware, the legacy edition cannot be upgraded, and the new version will have to be purchased. However, we are working closely with Sony and Microsoft to provide a discount to the digital legacy console version owners.
So if you've been following the news in regards to 7 Days to Die, this shouldn't be any shocker here. They've noted multiple times through the past few releases that they were working with Sony and Microsoft on the discounts. So that's everything that the Fun Pimps had from the video release that they put out comically on 420. But they also did release an FAQ, which has some really interesting tidbits in there. We're not going to go through all of it. I'm going to hit on kind of the highlights of it, and you can read through it at your own leisure. I'll have that linked below, as well as the video that they put out in the description. Okay, let's jump on into it. Why release now? Most of that's kind of stuff and fluff. They feel like the game is at a level where it's viable to go out. I think an important part that they try to point out here, the Fun Pimps have and will continue to support 7 Days to Die development with a majority of their resources. This is clearly addressing a lot of flack that they took around 7 Days Blood Moons, where the community felt like they didn't finish their first game, and now they're releasing a second game as just a cash grab. But I think they're really trying to focus on the fact that this is still their main focus. Why are some features in the roadmap? Okay, What's more interesting to me is what's not said on this one. Putting this out there on consoles puts an additional pressure in terms of integrity and what's expected from a quality standpoint, because they're going to have a lot more eyeballs on this and a lot more pressure. So hopefully that leads to a little bit more transparency as well as more quality and on-time releases. I covered this one earlier, but I want to recover it. What will the price increase mean for my current PC Steam copy of 7 Days to Die? And the answer to this one is nothing. And as much as people have complained about the money grabbing of the Fun Pimps, a lot of you have bought this game for $10 or even less than that over the years and have gotten hundreds, if not thousands of hours of enjoyment and fun out of this. I don't know. Personally, I don't know that there's another good, cost to benefit ratio out there in terms of entertainment. Is the game perfect? No, but damn if I had a lot of fun playing it. Next, why increase the cost? Because it's 2024, folks, and things have gotten more expensive. Gaming in general has not had any major increases until the past year or so. If you really go back and think about it, even on console games, that $60 price point has been static for way longer, given inflation and all the other rising costs around us. Okay, let's jump into console version specific questions. Will the console version have crossplay? We already discussed that it did, but we didn't get into the details, and this gives us what I was looking for, quite honestly. I should go back and add it, but we're already this far along. So they already have crossplay connections working across PC, PS5, and Xbox Series SX. They are waiting for the approval from Microsoft and Sony. So that means it already functions. It's just more of an approval process. Next, and I do want to address this, what about the old console version? I've heard a lot of flack about people saying, why aren't we updating the old console version? Folks, if you don't work in technology, the old consoles can't handle 7 Days to Die. Some of the beefy PCs out there still struggle with it, so I completely get this from their perspective. It just wouldn't be a good user experience, even if they could upgrade it on those legacy consoles. Next, what about the old console version's availability? I think this is important, and I didn't note it earlier, but they're going to basically be delisting the old version of this, and they did this to avoid confusion between the branding of the new game and the old one. So you still have access to that old one if you wanted to play it, if you own it, but they're going to remove it from the marketplace so no one accidentally buys the old version now that the new one is out. Next, will I be able to use my old saves on the new version? No, absolutely not. Those of us in the PC world have known this has never been the case. Each alpha, it's a whole new version, and there's not parity between the prior ones. So that's just not going to be viable. I completely get this. I understand the frustration, but that's just the reality. This next one is really important because a lot of people have a lot of heartburn around this one. Will the new console edition get the same updates this time? So they go into a little bit of protective language here, but they basically say, yes, the goal is to keep them the same with the exception of hardware, restrictions. Basically, if the console version can't handle it, they are going to have to look at that. But otherwise, it's intended to get the same updates, the same stable releases. It won't get the experimental releases like PC will. Will the console edition get modding support? This is tricky. They said they're discussing it. I understand why they're not going to agree or disagree on this one. It would be great to see it here, but man, the mod community would have to go through such scrutiny to have that available on console to not break consoles. So man, that one's going to be sketchy. I think that's going to be TBD, if not no. Next, will the console edition support local split screen? No. And hey folks, this isn't just the Fun Pimps, this is the gaming industry as a whole. So because we've been so demanding in terms of graphical quality, it is very difficult for them to render two separate screens and have the computational power for the console to be able to stand up to that. So this is just a sheer hardware limitation. All right, the last one we want to cover here is, will there be any limitations or differences between console edition and PC on launch? So let's focus on the on launch perspective here. So first off, random gen, the console version will not have that. It's going to have the pre-gen maps, which I think there's 3 of them, and then it will have Navigaine, which has been the primary map of 7 Days to Die. The level prefab editor / world editor will not be available on launch. That makes sense given we're going with only kind of prefabbed experiences on the initial console release, and that makes sense. Next, we've got internet connection server connectivity at launch. The console edition will be restricted to peer-to-peer. This is pretty big. This means no servers, unfortunately, at least on the first go. So we're going to have to keep our eyes open in terms of the cross-plat, and does that enable servers? Because that's where, for me personally, the magic of the communities of PC and console really combining will happen. Hey folks, it's Echo here. I hope you enjoyed that breakdown on the newest information out from the Fun Pimps. I'm going to be doing a full analysis on the 1.0 release down below. I'll have that out later this week. But otherwise, as usual, huge thanks to all my Patreon and Twitch supporters over here. I will see everyone on the next one. Echoes out.